This is Eddie Gore, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
My man Eddie Gore is on the show. It's so great. We're going to be doing a whole runaround through Tennessee. John and I are going to head out with our significant others, and we're going to hit Nashville, Music City. We're going to hit Memphis. And so in order to do that, I had to start getting to know folks in Tennessee. And Eddie was one of the first people that I was introduced to. And I just wanted to say thanks for hanging out with us. I love what you do. I love the building you work in. I love the guy who owns that building. You know, when they talk about Music City, man, it's incredible. I also want to say welcome to Wes maybe the Wesenator. If you're from America, it's Wesenator. But I just, you guys both work in the same kind of field, and I just thought it would be great to have this conversation between all of us on what it is that you do. I mean, you're right there. You're in the heart of Music City. Tell us what that even means to you.
You want me to start with me right here, obviously.
Yeah.
I've been very, very lucky that, you know, my daddy, once he got out of the Air Force, was hired by IBM up here in Nashville. And us being Catholic, he joined the Knights of Columbus, little Catholic league up there that had a ball club, softball club, because my daddy was actually playing pro ball. And he was the kid or the guy back in the day that could hit the ball into the river. So everybody back in the day that had a softball team, and being Nashville, Tennessee, had RCA, CBS, ABC Dot, all had the promotion guys, wanted my dad on their team. So they would pack the back of our Fiat with all these cut out albums. So I grew up listening to all these albums. And we happened to have a piano in my little living room. And I just started playing piano and learning what the heck Nashville music was all about, you know. And I guess I played piano. I wound up going to college, studied orchestration arranging, because I guess, like my dad said back in the day, and you're going to do what with that? And I was like, I got it, Dad. You just keep going forward. And that's where I cut my teeth on who Nashville was by the records I got to listen to, then by just doing all sorts of arrangements and meeting the kind of musicians that made up Nashville, knowing why they were here in the first place, to support publishing companies and their demos, and then move on to supporting acts and their records. And then I got introduced to a guy named Lehning, who brought me into a studio, and I was just kind of his sidekick, where I learned how to basically manage studio sessions, hire the musicians, write the charts. And then again, Steve Cropper hired me back again to build a studio for him. And I've been with him ever since. And that's what I did. And I basically had to teach myself, Wes, how to do all the techie stuff, because I'm a musician, right? And I read books for days. And you guys, I'm still jealous of you. I'm like, what are you doing over there, man? You know, and so I've stole a lot, you know, in my mind of like how to mic things and work, but just comes out to what's sounding good, you know.
Definitely.
But I'm very lucky to have someone like yourself to be able to explain, like, why is this working so well? Well, Wes will come in and tell me this is why this is working so well. You know, but that's my little Nashville story, is that I'm in the music business because my dad was a ringer on the softball team. That's kind of where it all started. And that's something.
That's insane. I mean, but we're as envious of you guys, though, because, you know, you just sit down and write a chart and they're like, what? and you Nashville guys, you're a different breed anyway. I mean, I work a lot with one of Steve's friends, Elliot Randall, and you know, he explained to me the Nashville chart one day, and I was like, huh? How does that work? Because I know all the dots, but it's like, oh, it just says 1, 3, 5. It's like, that's mind-boggling.
Back when I started college, I wound up even in high school. I used to go watch because Nashville is just full of the greatest musicians ever, right? And songwriters. Yeah. And you could show up at a little club. They would let me in when I was 17 because they knew I was a music fan, you know, at these bars. And there was a band called Contraband that later on I found out they're just studio guys that get together and would write popular charts. They would play popular songs and do charts with them. We're talking 5 horn pieces, we're talking a rhythm section and an incredible singer. I used to go watch these guys, every week on a Friday night after the football games. And I remember asking Chris McDonald, because the trombone player, I was just mesmerized. Like, how do you have time to rehearse? When do you get how do you get these guys together to rehearse and the gig? He said, Eddie, I don't rehearse. He says, I write charts. I can, therefore, without having to pay the guys for rehearsal, I can get the best guys in the world because they're basically getting paid double for just showing up. And I said, after hearing how great the music was, in my mind, I could still remember, I'm never rehearsing as long as I live. And in order to do that, I started learning to write longhand. Well, I did write longhand, but really for combo sessions. And I would write like lead sheets that were like painted like the real book or fake book. And therefore, I was able to start directing musicians live. I had a best friend at the time named Quentin Ware. He and I would write the horn charts in B flat, where I would write sections A, B, and C. I wouldn't write verse, chorus, bridge. So you could call these cats in that could read and just count it off and just hit it. I'd give them tempo and you would go. And I'd always have a girl singer or something that would learn the song before she came. And bam, we're hitting it. And being in Nashville, these guys were getting to play. They're like, wait, call Eddie Gore, man. He's played with the best cats. If you're just moving to town, you're like, we got to know who Eddie Gore. Hey, you got some of those gigs? You want to hire me as a drummer? You want to hire me as a horn player? And I really started directing the best musicians in the world that I couldn't hold a candle to. Yeah. There's no way. But I knew how to kind of get them together and direct them. Holy cow, those are some of the best memories in the world. And those are some early stages of me, like you're playing live in front of hundreds of people right away, never rehearsing. So that kind of led me to what I do today is producing. You get cats in here and you're just starting to really having to move towards, a common theme or something. You direct these guys. So that was a big blessing working with those guys. And like I said, after, Steve had hired me and built a studio, and he knew I knew how to program and stuff. They had a tape machine. So that's where my engineering chop started, Wes. As I started thinking a tape machine to my little cute drum sounds, right? And then hired the guitar player and a singer on top. And then, like I said, Kyle, I don't even know why he hired me, but he moved me to the big time where I got to sit in those studios with the best of the best. And that's where the number chart came in.
Right.
Because that's where since I was writing charts already, it was the simplest thing. Because if you're in a key of C and you've written everything in the key of C and the girl comes in and she needs to take it up a whole step, you have to rewrite everything. But if it's in the Nashville number system, a one's the tonic, the subdominant, dominant, they're all the same. It's a genius system.
It's brilliant.
So we're able to have the chart, we're able to have the session, the arrangement, and then we're able to move up, back down keys so the producer can really get in there and know exactly where that's fitting that vocalist or something, or the key. As easy it is to move tempos, you can move keys.
Brilliant.
It is. It's a lot of fun. So, I'm looking around. That's all. I mainly write numbers. Then you get like the Steve Croppers. He'll like, Eddie, I'm like, I got you, Crop. I'll write the letters for you.
Excellent.
So when you get all these high-end musicians, they come in, there's certain things that you're doing that other people are not, because they're not getting those guys, apart from no practice and not wasting their time and paying them. Like, what makes it look, it's got to be fun, right? No one wants to have someone who's obstinate to work with. You might have to, but if you're choosing to work somewhere, what makes it different? How do you get someone who's, are they even hard to get anymore, or do you just pick up and you call?
Well, you have to have a relationship, and like reading your bio and stuff, it's relationship building, right? And actually you have to judge personalities in -3 seconds and kind of fit literally, and you have to fit where they live, and I'm pretty damn good at that, kind of figuring out, starting a communication, what have you. And through the years, because you're listening to them and you're not talking, and you just let them go and be themselves. And if you could just let them build a very comfortable environment, they're going to say, Eddie Gore is the best person to work with ever. And you have done nothing except make them feel comfortable, and also been a pro at your job by having the arrangements and stuff, right? But I'm not touting myself or anything. But we do have a whole lot of fun. My favorite line that Cropper told me recently that Duck Dunn used to say, they would get in there in a session, and Duck would sit down and goes, all right, boys, we're not going to make work out of this, are we?
No, we are not, Mr. Duck.
That's right.
That's something that's right up your alley, Wes. I mean, you do the same thing. Like, so just for those that possibly don't know Wes either, but Wes obviously can do everything engineering, and he can make sounds. He talked about one time, Eddie, he's like, I need to record this cymbal, and I bang it and put it into a pool of water and record that. I need that sound. He just, it does all this kind of crazy stuff. But when he goes to NAMM, one of the things he always talks about, and for those who don't know, NAMM is like the music industry's convention, right? And it's for everybody.
National Association of Music Merchants.
That's right. They do one where you guys are, and they do one where I am, right? Like 10 minutes from my house. Wes always does a talk on, the brain part of it, and like what he has to do to get UB40, who he did it on for, Matt Hoy, who's constantly throwing out hits. He gets those guys to be better than they probably believe they can be. So Wes, talk a little bit about that and what you hear Eddie saying and how you guys overlap.
Well, it's exactly what Eddie's saying. It's like it's making sure that everybody's comfortable, and like just a little example. On Saturday, we did this sort of little bit of all-star recording. It was for the Teenage Cancer Trust charity. So we went into beautiful Mark Knopfler's studio. He very kindly donated the time. But it was Rad Scabies from The Damned, big drummer, Horace Panther from The Specials, another big ego, John Klein on guitars, Kevin Eldon, comedian, actor on vocals, Nick Lowe producing. And it's this huge studio, and some of the guys were like, oh my God, it's like a little bit intimidating, it's this amazing environment, and you kind of feel Nick Lowe sitting there. There's a 72 channel Neve desk, and it's all a bit, how do you make those guys comfortable and think about the music rather than being on the spot? And I think that's the overlap. I mean, I don't call myself a producer. I have to sometimes produce, but I'd rather work in a situation, where I'm sitting at that desk and I'm creating the sounds, and someone like you, Eddie, is just sitting there going, that's cool, but can we make that sound a little bit more purple? Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And it's that interaction between the two of us that then translates into the room, because those guys will feel, oh, we're fine, we're safe, we can do whatever the hell we want, and then magic goes down to tape.
Now you're being just as creative by going to some of the hardware and making those sounds and doing soundscapes for your producer.
Yeah, but that, in my opinion, that should be almost irrelevant or invisible to the guys in the room playing. I mean, that's between you and me, and the feedback they get is that they go, "Oh my God, I sound great," and that makes them perform better. I hope.
Yeah, I need Wes over here. He needs to be over here at Studio C, no doubt.
on that little Series 75 over there.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. I got this. It's a 1980 console, and one of the consoles I learned to work on was a PV desk, because Steve Cropper had built a guitar, designed one for PV, and they're like, "Here, y'all need a PV," So I grew up, and God bless them, but it was a board set up very similar to this. So I'll never forget when I got to go across the street when my friend Chad had said, Eddie, you need this Triton. It's just been sitting over here. The guy from Alabama had bought it and just had been sitting there. So I was like, okay, let's make a deal. And I bought this Trident, right? And I'll never forget my techie guy, like Wes, helping me wire it all. And this is just goes to learning stuff, right? He turned the major fader on because he wound up having a 2 mix that we could blow through it. And I sat back like, he looked at me and goes, yes, that's your console. I was like, and so how many years, 10, 12 years, I'm thinking, oh my God, I didn't know any better at all, right? So, but I learned to make what I had, which was very nice, but work to the next level, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so doing that here, then it also translates to taking the best of the best guys, right? And making them and still inspiring them, I don't know, to be creative, to maybe beat some of the things that they would have not normally beat, and just look back and just be super excited. So, because I was beating me up all the time, like, why can't I sound like Richard Dodd production? What the hell, you know? Right? That's wrong, you know? So that's the only thing. I didn't really have any mentors engineer-wise to help me at all. So I just had to kind of do it on my own. And it's funny, I listened to most of the guys I listened to are all from England, you know, because there was just something y'all were doing over there that just had a little grease on it, you know, and it was so musical to me. And that's every record I would listen to try to learn drum sounds or engineer sound, vocal sounds and stuff. Still working on it. I ain't got it down, but that's what inspires.
You never stop learning. I mean, it's funny because every time I speak to American engineers, producers, it's exactly like you said. It's like we were listening to what the guys were doing over there, and here it's the other way around. It's like we're listening to what the guys are doing over there. You know,
there's something y'all got. I wish I could just dial it in all the time, but it's a lot of work, man. Wes, I'm telling you, I love what y'all are doing over there.
I think it's a bit of aggression, you know. The English sound, I would describe as a bit more cranky, as where the American sound is a lot more polished.
Well, that's a good description because I love tension. Absolutely, I love tension, and so that could be a big thing there. I mean, I don't think I've ever ended a song on a 1 chord.
I know. I thought you were going to say that the Americans were more loose, but you're saying polished. And I know you've also been. I don't want to say the word critical, but you kind of hold the horn sections in over where you're at in England to a higher standard. Maybe like you think you like American horns, or you say that you like American horns better. Is this part of this exchange where I've talked to American producers and they're like, no, the horns in Great Britain are great. They love them. Is that sort of the same thing?
Well, I mean, I kind of not see myself as a British engineer, although I did learn my craft here. You know, I'm originally from Belgium, but I think that's why I like to sit in between the two territories, you know, because you've got that sort of raw, raucous, fuck you kind of English sound. And then you've got the sort of more lush, full, maybe a bit more compressed American sound. And I like to find a balance between the two of them. But the horn thing, I'm going to be slightly unkind at the moment, but I mean, there's a million jokes about musicians. We all know them, but the thing about horn players over here is they play 2 notes and they go to the pub.
Right.
Right. So it's like pint, pint. My thing about American horns is that they're like a freight train and a gunshot. You know, when they come in, they all come in at the same time. It's like, BOW! And it hits you in the face. As where for me, you know, and I'm being unkind and generalizing, but in general, English horns are maybe a little more polite and not as tight. So you get more of a slur into a note as opposed to that bam in your face American horn section. That's always been my thing.
That's so interesting. I'm just thinking of a bunch of the ska bands out of there that do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe the ska thing is slightly different. I mean, I'm more talking about, you know, bigger horn sections or maybe even big band style stuff. You know, you got that. For me, horns are like, they need to come on and off like a car horn. You know, bow, and not, you know, trumpet and sax are kind of going a fraction early. The trombones, because of the physicality of the instrument, arrive a little bit later, and to my ears, it's always been, you know, American horns are always a bit more in your face.
Well, they get to work at the craft a lot. We're lucky enough to have some symphonies and a lot of combo stuff happening around.
Yeah.
And these guys are playing all the time, and
Exactly.
I think a lot of it has to do with that. You know,
No, for sure.
Is there like a progenitor, like someone who kind of led that charge? I mean, we had maybe probably the most well-known horn player within the music industry. We had Mick Gillette on right before he passed, and he talked about how like he would instantly, like he just had that download from God style knowledge of the horn, right? And so he goes out and he's the Tower of Power horn section. Like we have horn sections that get hired out specifically to come blow the back of the room, and then there's Mick standing in the middle of it, and he's instantly writing, you know, on stage live for the Rolling Stones and changing how they perform that song for the rest of their time performing. Like, we need to have horns no matter where we go. It may not be Mick, but it's someone like him that is that klaxon call that like changes everything. Maybe I don't know, you guys are the industry people, but what do you think about something like that? Is it one dude who just does it and changes it for a long time?
There's usually a section leader, right? That the guys kind of work around, and he's usually the ones that writes the charts in the first place. Okay. But that person is normally incredibly musical, knows every one of the instruments, basically their range and where they live. But at the same time, he's really listening either to the artist, he knows the song extremely well, the lyrics, and it's about, that's real musicianship, to fill these little gaps and stuff and know where that is, and then how to quickly put it on paper. Those guys that do that stuff live, you know, Wes, holy cow, you know, I get it though. You're kind of rewriting something for when it comes around again, because you usually have a repeat section. Okay, while they're doing something over here, he's scribbling in a little pickup here or something, you know, and all the cats can actually sometimes just sing in single note, but they know their harmony spots to it, you know. That's why it can be written that quickly. So as a group, it's like, I mean, they're one, right? So he doesn't have to write all the parts. He can like, this is where we're hitting, and they all can grab that. Oh, I watch that with amazement, you know, I love watching that stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's down to the section leader for sure. You know,
back in the day, that's why board tapes were so beautiful, because every show was different, you know? And if you had a board tape, you're like, what the hell are they doing? Oh, this is incredible. Did you get that one over there at the park that they played? And, you know, oh, I've got it. I'll send it. So some lost art, but it's kind of coming back for sure. You know?
I think so. Yeah.
There is a need for that too. Cause you know, you go see a couple of shows, and I love UB40, right? But if you want some originality in the set, you're just not going to get it. You know, they're going to play the same song. And I love UB40, but we don't get that like, oh, you know, that secret show in Santa Ana, you know, or whatever it is. It's, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the necessity of going out and making a professional show every night, and you can't take a whole lot of risks. But we do miss those things where like that bootleg of that one performance. Like I saw Bo Diddley in my hometown. They tried to make the theater in our hometown work, and he played, and he had oral surgery that day, but he's a pro. So he went out and stood on stage with a bunch of wadding in his mouth, maybe said the word, "Hey, Bo Diddley," 3 times. And the rest of the show, he just fucking played his heart out. And
I absolutely love that story.
Yeah. And it was kind of a known show. It's not like super secret, but he went out and he made something that was truly unique, and we all knew it when we heard it. We're like, this is interesting. This is a different thing.
Well, I think a lot of it is down to stuff being click tracked. You know, a lot of shows go on the road with a lot of Pro Tools stuff running in the background, or a lot of video stuff running in the background. So it's all clicked and they can't afford to go off. You know, it's not like the Grateful Dead going on stage and playing a 6-hour show off their heads on whatever. And, you know, that guitar solo, forget it. You'll never hear that thing ever again.
Yeah.
You know? But then again, you know, maybe, you know, a lot of young bands are sort of trying to get back to that old school, feel it and go for it, you know. And that's exciting.
It is exciting. It kind of comes from like all of a sudden there's a niche now because that's not existing so much. And the kids are like, I want to do this.
Exactly. No,
we don't need none of that stinking click track. Let's be different all the time. I'm just like, I'm all for it. Just go crazy, kids.
Definitely.
I may learn something.
I saw a show with the Counting Crows and the Wallflowers when they were, and the Sneaker Pimps were all on tour together. And it was, I guess like maybe the last show for the Wallflowers, and all of a sudden Barney, this is in the 90s, Barney the Dinosaur comes out on the stage. Like they had hired a guy and, you know, just kind of cutting it up a little bit. And then the lead singer from Counting Crows, Adam, he did like a 20-minute version of, you know, Mr. Jones and Me. And it was like, man, this is a really, really long version of this song. And so you still got to land it, right? Like it was fun with the Wallflowers. And I'm sure if you're in love with the Counting Crows, you probably love the 20-minute version of Mr. Jones and Me. But if you're just there to have a good time, you're like, man, Adam, seriously. Let's move along here.
That's pretty funny. But a great band. Counting Crows was a band, and so they could do that, right? They weren't on click tracks and stuff, you know,
right?
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing, and a great band at that. Great band.
Yeah. It's a high wire act, right? And sometimes you don't always land it like you want to, but you take those risks, and we are missing some of that risk taking.
That's what makes it fun, right, Wes? I mean, it's total fun watching them. Are they going to make it? Are they going to land?
Yeah, they did it.
So, Wes, when you're behind the glass and you're pushing those guys to jump, you're like, go for it, do it, push harder. You know, they call Wes a gunslinger sometimes, right? But so that's something that, you know, you're encouraging them or making it safe, maybe. Is that right? And then Eddie, respond to whatever Wes says in terms of getting bands to take that jump, to really take that risk.
Well, I think it's twofold, and it kind of goes back. I think it says that on your bio, Getty, you know, about the psychology of it. You know, it's like I think half of our job is being shrinks, making people feel good, making people feel secure. You know, because artists are not secure beings. They got a lot of issues, and that's why they make amazing music, because they got all this stuff that they need to get out of their system. So it's making them feel comfortable. It's making them feel secure that they can pour their heart out, and also maybe a little nudge into a zone where they wouldn't have thought of going, or B, they wouldn't think they are comfortable going. But when they do, then you get fire. You get magic. You know, I mean, we've had Ray on the show a couple of you know months back, and I'm afraid to admit I made that woman cry during the recording session.
Yes.
But the fact that I made her cry brought back the original emotion of the song when she wrote it, and she just delivered a one-take vocal that made me cry in the control room. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And you know, that translates to tape, and the listeners are going to hear that.
I know that experience well, where sadly, but it's fun at the end, and the artist at the end of the day is like, I can't believe you got that out of me and stuff. But when it's happening at a time, you got a female there and you're beating them up, not physically, but like, because you know they have more to offer and better.
Yeah.
And in today's world, you know, we're able to comp real quickly, move things here, send different melody ideas and stuff. And I don't know, they hit a wall or something. but you just can't let up. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you're like, no, if you're in the moment, you're going to get it. So I remember this girl Clancy, sometimes I full on cry, like you said, just because I was pushing her. But whoever's watching, it's a gentle push. It's a tough love push,
it is.
Right? Yeah, I'm not being this mean old record guy, but it's like, I love the psychology. It's a tough love thing, and you're really wanting them to leave with something that they'll never forget, the best take, because we're in the music business, not the music hobby. We have to compete, right? So, but at the same time, you want to do it for themselves. But I remember Clancy, this full on cry, and she did just what you said, Wes, because she gathered herself and she got back to just, what is it all about? It's the lyrics. Sing me a freaking song, okay? And at the end, I still get misty remembering this vocal on that one in particular. It's one of the most incredible vocals I've ever, pulled out of somebody, and that's, it's a trust thing. Gosh, it's a trust thing. All right, this is because you've got to earn their trust to get them into this very volatile situation. But if you can do that, you'll have their trust forever when it comes back around.
Yeah,
right.
No, absolutely.
What does that look like, though? I mean, I have to build trust to do the stuff that I do here, but also when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, I had to build trust, and you don't have trust until it's there. You've tested it. It's there. I mean, I know everybody's a professional. We had Mandy Barnett on the show, and she's a singer in Nashville. She works all the time. She's well known in the industry, right? But she can still walk into a room and be like, holy cow, look who's in the room with me here, and I'm going to be the one singing. Like, there's all these different levels of trust and risk that are going on. And again, Mandy's a pro. She can do the job, but that doesn't mean
that's part of what makes her great today.
Right.
Still,
right.
It's because of that incredible attitude she has.
Right. But if she walks in the room, she still might need a confidence lift, or you still might need to check in with her to go, yes, that's whoever it is over there, Eric Clapton, because who's not going to be like, holy shit, that's Eric Clapton. I mean, that's just, it can be like that. And you can be the consummate pro and have that, but you still, as a producer, you've got to check and see where they're at. You've got to understand where your trust. So what does it look like? Whatever kind of trust you have to build, how do you know it? But more importantly, how do you test it to make sure that it's where you want it to be?
Over to you, Eddie, first.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I'm a pre-production crazy guy. I am all about being prepared. All right. Super, super prepared. I was just in the studio. We had Audley Freed. We had Greg Morrow. Never played with Greg Morrow, drummer. We know each other. But here he is. He's been one of the top calls in the universe forever on drums. And here he is in my studio a week ago, right? And he knows me. But all of a sudden, here it comes. It's like, it's Eddie Gore guy. I know him. He's good at what he does, but is he a joker? We got a whole new thing that we're working on. And because you kind of know when to direct and when to just let back and let them be musicians and what they do best. But if you start coming in and maybe trying to control a situation of telling this guy what to play or how to play, you can lose a whole lot of respect. But if you learn how to listen to them first, listen, but with your prepped charts, your ideas, tempos, just let them do their job. That little bit of respect and professionalism comes back tenfold when they're when you go back in, you say, Greg, that thing that you were just doing on that second chorus, that belongs in the first chorus. Here, let me place back. All of a sudden they're like, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. But there's too many folks in our business that want to start directing, and the dude hadn't played one freaking note, and it's like, listen. You've hired them for a reason. Trust that they're going to kick. That's part of producing. It's just shutting up. You've already done
and it's
the
a
job.
two-way street. It's a two-way street.
How so?
I really enjoyed that.
you know, well, you know, it's like Eddie says, you need to know when to shut up. You need to know when to say something, but you know, you also need to know how to say it. Just going back to Saturday, because it was such a typical old school session. You know, Nick Lowe walks in. He composed the song that we were recording. What's so funny about Peace, Love, and Understanding? You know, and he just like, he walks in, you know, he's got his little shirt on, he's got his mask on, and he's like, I'm just here to watch, don't worry about me. And all the guys go into the room, they kick it off, they rock it out, they come back into the control room to have a listen, and he just sits there, he doesn't say anything. And the drummer goes, ooh, I think I was a bit busy there. Everybody's kind of, yeah, I think it's okay. They go back in, and Nick goes into the live room and just goes, okay, guys, so how about you do that there, you do that there. What you did there was amazing. You keep doing what you're doing. That was stunning. You're not treading on anybody's feet. And, you know, you could see the guys kind of going, that's what, really? Go to the 5 on that thing? But within a second, you see their brain switch to, hang on a minute, he wrote this song. He knows exactly what he's asking for. I'm going to do it. Next take, they do it, and you see the eyebrow kind of do the thing. And it's like, yeah, it works. And then we're off. We're rolling, you know. That's why it's a two-way street. You know, you let people find what they're doing. And then they go, well, that was overplayed. Oh, sorry for being a dick. I was just gung ho. You know,
so true.
It's teamwork. It is teamwork. I don't think it is, I'm the producer and I'm right, or I'm the drummer and I'm right. No, it's teamwork, and you feel each other out. And if you're just doing one day, that feeling has to happen quite fucking quickly.
Yeah.
If you're doing a week, you've got a little bit more time. But like you said, pre-production, there's a lot of that shit you can get rid of. You know,
so we've been over here in the RCA building now, Studio C, for 6 years, and Steve Cropper, who has an office here, we were invited then, and I'm also with my business partner Justina Kelly. But the last session we did at Insomnia Studio, the one I built on June 30th, was a Christmas thing that Cropper was producing. And it was called Make Christmas Merry Baby. And it was a redo. And I remember I had called, there was a drummer that a lot of times I'll call, as a side, who don't I know that I need to know? And to one of the guys on the session, right? And they'll understand me enough to say, hey, so I'll call folks sight unseen because I trust somebody enough. So anyway, so remember this one drummer being on there. It was a 5-piece band. Cropper was leading up the session. And there was a lot of talk about what we're going to do, how's it going to play, how the arrangements is. And then it was time for me to press the red button. Press the red button. We play it through. Cropper sits back and goes, let's listen. That was the take. The musicians are freaking out. They're ready to be there for 3 hours. But Cropper, I always said, he teaches without saying so much. And it was almost like, guys, listen, you just listen. And they're, you know, they're ready to redo and do as Nashville does, right? And it's like, let's listen to that. And they listened. I can't express how much of a teachable moment that is, even with some of the biggest guys in the industry, because they're so worried about being overproduced. Let's do it again. Let's retrack it. Usually about cats that don't know what the hell they're listening for. But but Cropper does it. That was one of my favorite. Another teachable moment. It's like, y'all are pros. Y'all just played it, and it killed. And it wound up being this film and all that crazy stuff. But I love shutting up and listen. I guess that's what I was going to on that, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great story. during the recording sessions for U2 when they did Moment of Surrender, and it was all really just kind of an accident. The producer had set up a drum track and kind of screwed it up, and while he was working on it, he was playing in the studio, and then Larry Mullen sits down and starts playing with this offbeat bang, At Brian Eno, by the way, he's doing all this, and then within minutes, a song is complete. One take, first take, right? It's basically everything's all the same. And then U2's like, okay, let's start fucking with it now. And he's like, you idiots wouldn't know a miracle if it hit you in the face. But I mean, that's him save it. They've saved him. They've got that trust to go, oh, okay. And then it does become one of the signature songs from the album. There's me using U2 example, but this is one of the best bands in the world.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they love to work songs to perfection. And he's like, stop, don't, this one's good. You've done it. It's a miracle. Keep it, but it's hard to get people to necessarily believe in that, I would imagine, especially
that's a producer's job. It is right there. I mean, it really is,
Interesting.
It's a big part of the job is to know that.
Can you be wrong with that miracle and be like, oh, it's a minor miracle. Never mind. Let's bring some tambourine in.
Oh yeah. That's why I have, some fix-it stuff up here. Oh, I wasn't wrong. Look at that.
I knew the tambourine was going to be there the whole time. Yeah.
No, I will say the need for computers and stuff today that I've been fortunate to kind of grow up in that area is because as budgets for bands, studios, and records, they just really started getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We don't have the time to set up a band. There's a few folks that do. The guy just down the hall from me at Studio A, they could rent out a place for a month and just set up camp, and that's one way. The budgets I have come in, and a lot of folks, you can't really afford that. So stuff like Pro Tools or Logic or the DAWs today allow you to maybe, if you could have a singer before, just sit there and sing, come back again the next day and sing and sing and sing. We may not necessarily have that kind of time because it's costing $1,000-something a day just to run in here. So if you could get in here and you could get some of the takes, there may be a few words or a line that she's saying better in a chorus early on that you can rob and borrow, where cut it up, where back in the day you had the tape machines and you could do some creative edits, but not like today. And so that this has really served the necessity of being able to help to compete at the highest of levels, maybe not with the highest of budgets,
Sure.
and us creative guys have been able to use it more on, I'm going to fly these chord changes to the verse real quick just to see how that sounds because I don't have the whole band in here. I could just do it real quickly and stuff. So I don't know what got me off on that tangent, but the smaller studios and sometimes the smaller budgets, if we're good enough, we can get in there and try different things a lot more rapidly to compete. Maybe with the guys that can spend a month, on 4 songs, where we may have a week or something, that's it.
What are the other, and the end of that conversation, I'm curious, I put Brad's question up here too, talking about like home studio and the access to DAWs and all this stuff in your home. You can do incredible things in your house. We had Chris Merrick Hughes on, and he's like, a lot of people just don't need my help anymore. Like there's a market for what I can do, and it's not like it used to be. Tears for Fears, honestly, can just sit there and just do this stuff themselves, and they no longer need someone like Chris Merrick Hughes until they need him, of course. But how is that changing the marketplace? Why does someone even need to go to a studio if you can buy all this stuff for a relatively small amount of money? You can buy a plug-in that will give you Studio A sound, right? Or whatever room in the Capitol Records building, you can buy something that emulates that. So what does the music industry do to keep going? Like how much more small can you get, or can you continue to get smaller and smaller? And why does a band want to go and record live where you are at the Village? I've recorded at the Village before. It's incredible to see all the history on the walls, and there's value in that. But it's like buying a BMW versus a Honda motorcycle. You're like, the Honda works pretty goddamn good,
There's a great story about Chet Atkins, speaking of.
Yeah.
About Chet doing one of his he used to play sometimes live at these little just guitars and stuff, playing at some bars and stuff. And this guy came up and said, Chet, said, man, that guitar sounds great. And Chet handed him the guitar, said, now how's it sound? So if you'll take that to the modern technology, okay, right. Eddie, you can now have a $4,500 type microphone for $400, right? Okay, you can have this computer that does all the work of all these tape machines and everything's in one. Great. Or somebody's got all this gear, Eddie, and blah, 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 but it's your ears. I swear, it's just how does it sound and who's got the right ears and the better ears to know how to put it together. My kid, Edward, he got a record deal because I'd give him at Fordham University. He had I bought him a computer, a laptop. He had Logic on it, and he was producing everything on there. And some blog picked it up and said, "This is the most amazing record." Boom! So I'm telling you, it's just about your ears. He's a wonderful musician, but there is a place. However, I would love to have access to some of that. I'm lucky I have a lot of nice kind of gear here, but in Nashville, we're able to. Wes, I don't know if y'all got there too. We've got like Blackbird Studios and stuff that have all this gear. Yeah, we could just call Rolf and the guys over there, and we can rent some of those incredible microphones and stuff that do give us another level of. It's dynamic is what that adds at the end of the day. You're really getting a larger dynamic level, top to bottom, depth and stuff that can really help you out. Or that would be just me hiring Wes and say, you engineer this. This is what we're doing. Here's the musicians.
Well, it's that Gestalt thing, isn't it? The sum of the parts is a lot more than just the parts. I remember a session where the artist insisted on a particular microphone. It was a Telefunken Elam 251. It's whatever, $7-8 grand. And I have it's not a copy, it's not a clone, but it's a lovely Canadian company, Advanced Audio Mics, who make mics inspired by the greats. And it's $1 grand. And I went, I'll bring that in as well. So we hired this $7 grand mic, and I put my cheaper mic up because the artist had it in his mind. I have to have that mic and I have to have that preamp because such and such use that and they sound amazing. So first of all, that mic might suck on your voice, dude. We don't know. We'll have to check. So I put both mics up, same preamp, almost the same mic, very different budget, same singer. And I tracked them. I didn't tell the producer which channel was which. I didn't tell the singer which channel was which. And I told my assistant to fuck me up and repatch them so I didn't know which one was which. We all sat down. We A-B'd. Ooh, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. All right, let's switch to the next one. Well, that sounds great too. Went back and forth. And in the end, all three of us went for the cheaper mic.
Yeah.
Because it worked with his voice better. Another singer, the expensive one would have been a lot better. But it's that thing, you go, I know what that sounds like on that kind of voice. It's experience. It's also the gear, One Pultec is not going to sound like the next Pultec because that's the nature of the beast. They all sound different. Your Trident sounds amazing. Another Trident, which is 3 serial numbers away, might suck balls. Right. You have no idea, but that's where the experience comes in. And yes, you can buy a cheap mic, you can buy a cheap interface, some cheap monitors, and then you're sitting at home with your mouse and you're recording yourself, and there's nobody to tell you that you can do better. And there's also no interaction between you and the rest of the band. I still think, and that's very old school probably, but I still think there's something that happens when you've got musicians in the same room of vibing of each other that you cannot capture at home.
No, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's the real organic band stuff. I think the kids, call them the kids, they could be 30 years old, but a kid, if they're just still wanting to move forward, what have you. But that's a niche today. Everything's so, as a general rule, and there's some amazing programmers and but it's all electronic. No one's in the same room. It's all done in the COVID way now, just one musician at a time. But to get in here and to actually work as a band, it's just like there's something special that just happens, and it is. Yeah. It's just how they've worked together, the stuff in the room, what they're hearing, and being able to play off them in real time. Oh, that's where the bass player's going. The guitar player may move up his neck just a little differently in real time. I agree with you 1,000,000,000% on that. I do. It's fun though. I tell you, I love to do foundational tracks, just like you said. And then of course we have the ability today to kind of embellish and stack and put, but the foundational track is so important. If you got cats in there playing together, there's nothing going to beat it, at all.
Absolutely.
How much, I want to change topics a little bit because I want to talk about where specifically you work. It's a historic building. All kinds of people have played there. Are those people in the room still? Like, is Jerry Reed in the room? Like, do you get to?
Oh, I see it. Well, when I was talking about one of the first, when my daddy was the ringer there, and I got all those albums and stuff. My very all-time favorite record that we grew up on was Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed, called "Me and Jerry," right? And there was a song on there like "Tennessee Stud" on it that they had redone and everything. That was done in my studio. Tell me how that even happens. Okay. Right. How did I even get invited here with Justina and me? It's stupid. But Shooter Jennings is a friend because I know him because he was at my wife's label. And Shooter came over here a few years ago. He was producing Brandy Carlisle next door with Dave. He came in because, hey, Eddie, I was just a little kid when my daddy was over here recording Honky Tonk Heroes, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wait, Whaley was in my studio recording that record? This place is nuts with history. It's called RCA Studio C. It's just down the hall from the big room, Studio A. The building we're in is called the Studio A building because of that big room. So when RCA Studio B, RCA was the main tenant over there. The Bradleys had built that, and they built a bigger room, or excuse me, a bigger studio with office spaces. I guess how it works with RCA guarantee you that there'd be a small tenant in there. And they built, it's kind of wild, this humongous room because they were going to put orchestra and strings in there because they wanted to compete kind of in the pop world. Well, quick story. They failed miserably. So next thing you know, strings and orchestra all over country music, the Nashville sound. Okay. That's just a little piece of quite a bit of it, Well, Chet, in this part of the building I am, was head of A&R, and this was his office. And in 68 or 69, when RCA then occupied the whole building, they moved upstairs, and he built this smaller studio called Studio C. And even in my, I don't know if you can see it, but I even have a picture of Roy Orbison singing right in there, which is kind of crazy, right? Yeah. And this is a room that's we're right at the very end of Studio A. So the big room's on that side, and I'm over here. And when Aubrey Preston, who had saved the building, had invited us over because they knew we were losing our studio, he was like, Eddie, I want y'all to come over to Studio C. And I was like, Studio C? What's that? Because I'd fortunate enough gotten to work in the Studio A while. And when I found this room, because it's been private forever, And even it was used as storage in the early 70s, you know, 'cause the big studios were the big deal then. And so we've just been keeping it alive. You're speaking about having fun. I like it that Aubrey likes to bring some of his folks over here because we're always got red wine and chocolate going on. It just, you know, not going to make work out of this type. But I sense a lot of that because of some of the folks that I've known that worked in this building years ago. Always kind of smile and go, I always wondered what was going on in that little studio down there. There's a lot of crazy history here that I'm very, very fortunate to be a part of. And so we're just trying to, you know, just make another generation of it, you know, just keep it going.
Is there someone out there who sort of fills that role that Jerry Reed played in a lot of things? Like, you know, he had no problem putting a funny song on an album, you know? You got the gold mine, I got the shaft, stuff like that, or you're using a bass drum that boom, tell a joke. Is there someone doing that kind of thing where they're, you know, they say like there's a clip of him playing a song and he tells his band to quit out louding him. You know, he just said funny shit, you know, like obviously he could pick like crazy and was an incredible musician, but there was a lightheartedness to what he did. Does that still exist or is it too businessy right now, you think?
I mean, Brad Paisley is the best at that. He's got a song Check for Tex, you know, like, and he's just an insane musician, a songwriter. And I think it's nice to know guys that don't take themselves too seriously.
Always helps.
It really is nice. But at the same time, Keith Urban to me is one of the best of the best. And he's a knucklehead. You know, now whether that sometimes makes it on record like Bradwell, but some of that stuff you got to be real careful because you don't want to typecast yourself today as a clown. Yeah. And Jerry Reed was a clown, but but his talent. So maybe that's what worked again. It's undeniable. You know, I love that you brought up that. That's just love that guy. But yeah, that's the first guy I think that could come to mind. You know, Toby Keith's an amazing songwriter, singer, and he would make fun of himself a lot in some of his videos and songs. I mean, he was incredible. He's awesome. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, I guess like that song, "I'm as good once as I ever was." And the video with it,
brilliant,
great song, hilarious. You know, we all get it.
He makes me smile. Trust me, that guy makes me smile big time. You know,
and his song about his buddy Waylon. You know, not Waylon Jennings, but Wayman Tisdale. Sorry, Wayman Tisdale. That makes me cry. He can make me laugh and cry in 2 songs in a row. He's just incredible.
Mm-hmm. He's a special one for sure. You know? I'm trying to think of some of the other crazies, but anyways, it is room for that, and there are some folks that are very, very capable. But I think at the same time we couldn't say, okay, well, who is Jerry Reed too? I think he had his lane, and there wasn't anybody else that occupied it. And I think that's probably what it is, you know.
And there was also a thing with Jerry Reed where if it was time to get serious, the band backed the fuck up, and he brought that camera in close. And that was it. And that's when you knew that like we're not joking around anymore, you know. I mean, he might crack a couple of jokes while he's doing that, but you knew it was serious business time when the band did stop out louding him. You know?
Yeah. There's a lot of fun when you're just confident in yourself and your band and your product and your brand. It's a beautiful thing. I guess that's what we're all here for eventually, right? See if we can get to just a little bit of that level. You know, that's a dream.
Not make work out of it.
That's right. Don't make work out of this.
Have some fun.
Hey Eddie, what's your pitch to that band that's like, man, we got to go to Nashville and go record in the studio. We gotta get some of that Eddie Gore love. What do you want to tell them to put them over the top, make them say yes, and get in that car that won't barely make it and come out to you guys and spend all their money on making this?
Well, I tell you what, early on, you know, when you're struggling and you're like a new kid on the block and you got your studio and you're out there and you're a producer and you're fighting for some work, because I have a gift of leading the band and stuff. I mean, it was work and leading folks, but And back in the day, I lost some work to, some shinier people. But at the same time, they'd come back to me and say, Eddie, we didn't like what we got. We've lost out on money, but would you try to do a little with us? Absolutely. And I think it's really, I am artist centric. I'm all about their voice in the marketplace. I'm here to find who they are. I know by definition, as an artist or an individual, you are unique. So right there, if I stay out of the way, everybody's saying, what's going to make me different? You're going to make you different. Being you. If I stay out of the way, I've done my job. Now, that's the little secret Wes knows. It's like there's stuff behind the scenes, but we're really staying out of the way. And that comes to listening, getting on the mic, letting them try stuff. Don't say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. As soon as you've done that, that's the way I would pitch myself, is we're here to find your voice in the marketplace, period. And for you, and stuff that, and my favorite thing is because with young artists, you're not going to make it by tomorrow as far as being a regional or national act. So in 6 years, 3 years, wouldn't you like to play a song that somebody said, did you just do this?
Yeah.
It's not time cast, right? It's like brand spanking new. And we have to give artists something longevity. And I've always said, if you give the artist their voice, it'll stand the test of any time, right? So that's my pitch to those kids. And a kid could be a 55-year-old man. That's just what to get in there,
Yeah.
And I'm all about that. I just like passion. Let's figure this shit out, I love it.
Labels, are you listening?
Yeah. That's what it's all about to me. There's, trust me, the labels, they all do great. They for the thing that they got. I mean, I love and stuff. It's just, I've got a little niche worked out. And, eventually what I try to do is give our young artists or who come in as developing great product that can, as I said, stand the test of time, that maybe they can move to Mr. Biggs, and he wants to talk to. That's why I would say, can you go into Mr. Biggs' office right now and Mr. Biggs say, I don't get it, I don't like it, but you need to do A, B, and C. Are you going to say, Mr. Big, I'll do whatever, okay? Or will you say, thanks, Mr. Big, but I'll go on to my next meeting? And usually what happens is Mr. Big is checking you out. He'll say, hold on, can I make a phone call? And he'll work and call somebody because he knows that you're confident in your brand and he gets it. That's where I'm trying to get, is the kids or the artists, or I keep calling them kids. Forgive me, ladies and gents, but get you to where you could be so confident in who you are and your brand that you're walking anywhere. It's just like, that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
That's that dial, though. That's that producer's dial where you're like, hey, 2 notches back. Right now you're at cocky. Let's get you to confident, right? But there's a real thing there. Or you're not confident enough. Let's get you up a little higher and add some of that, because there is a line there, and you can be over it.
I like that. I like that you said that. Yeah, there really is. And if you're too cocky, you're not listening anyways.
Right. If your ego's in the way, get your damn ego out of the way so you can hear how good you are, or how much you need,
or how much you need.
Yeah. I don't want to take any more of your time. We're definitely going to have you on again 100 times. You're part of the show now, but I wanted to give Wes a chance. Oh yeah, no, this is great. I love this. And imagine if John was here, we would be talking about 100 different things. I can't wait for you guys to meet. And I'm really excited to meet you in face-to-face in September. Wes, what do you have? Last questions, last thoughts in closing?
No questions, no thoughts. I just want to be able to fly and come and see you and hang out, man.
I would absolutely love that. I would absolutely love that. My business partner, who you'll get to meet eventually, Justina Kelly, I mean, she's lived over in France. She's an incredible artist and writer. And like I told her, I said, we're very lucky to have a place, but we're mobile. You know, our talents are mobile, and we can.
Yeah.
And so we've done a lot of work for like Universal France and what have you. She has there. Unlucky me, I've had to be here to do it. But I really have a goal to get over there to like do a lot of work. That's what she does too. You know, just
that's funny.
We
all want to go like this across the world because Wes wants to come over here more. You know, he had it locked up. Pandemic came and made that hard. But we're always trying
to get Wes over here. Gosh, that would be awesome.
And I speak French.
Oh, well, that's good because well, Justina speaks French fluently, and every other language I know. She's just one of those. But how's that work?
All right, let me run this thing to close this out. You guys, hang on for a sec. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching the Break It Down Show.